Did they sign Tom Brady and nobody told me? Did they? What happened?
By the way, that ball was caught. Just pointing it out there. Greetings and salutations. Welcome to Ref the District, episode 14. I'm Nathan Perry here with The Stoner, and this episode we'll be discussing our weekly update on your Nationals, the Capitals, the Wizards, and then when we get to the game, we will be discussing Washington football team's 2021 draft. Do we like it? Do we not like it? We'll give you our grades and review over the entire process. And then when we get to the post game, we're going to be discussing some off-season QB drama. Not that Washington knows anything about that, right, Stoner?
Yeah, thank goodness that doesn't involve Washington for like the first time ever. I'm excited about that. How was your weekend? How are you coming down from the high of what was an awesome weekend?
It was a pretty good weekend, not gonna lie. Productive yesterday. I did take a really long nap yesterday though, and so I missed some of the draft as I was just like, I'm just gonna conk out for just a little bit, and next thing I know, it's like 3 hours later, and I'm catching up on the trade up for our 5th round pick for next year to take a 6th and a 7th this year. So it was kind of interesting, kind of getting back into that one. I thought we had a break, right? I was just like, we don't have a 6th round pick. We picked the 5th, and Washington picked in the 5th. So I was just like, sweet, I can take a little nap here, and the next thing I know, it's a whole day has gone by.
Yeah, well, I'll be honest. I don't really pay attention. Probably, maybe the 4th round pick I'll pay attention to. I don't pay attention to those guys later. Sure, some of them will make the squad and even become excellent players like last year with the Cameron Curl, but I don't pay attention to those guys. Those are guys I never heard of. Their chances of making the team are not great, even though the coaches will all say, these are guys we're picking to make the team.
There was a stat I'd seen flown around yesterday that was, the NFL rosters or game time, I think it was either rosters or game time, comprises of 66% of these day 3, people who are picked. So, I mean,
really?
Well,
also, they're depth guys, right?
Yeah, and you also got to figure that, rounds 4 through 7, there's a lot more people being picked there than there are rounds 1 through 3. So, you get some comp picks in the 3rd, but then you really start to get some extra stuff coming at you in the 4th and the 5th and the 6th and the 7th there. Plus 4 rounds to 3 rounds. The math checks out. But you can get some guys, right? Cam Curl's, one. We've got a few people in the later rounds, that worked out. So we'll see. We'll see if this year's draft holds up to that. But we'll be talking about that a little bit later. I want to get to our week in review first. It's been pretty exciting week for most of the teams here in the district.
Yeah, it has. What? Who do you want? Who should we talk about first? Wiz, Caps, or Nats?
Let's talk about the Wiz because they finished an exciting yet disappointing game just last night. So the Wizards have, I won't say cemented themselves because let's face it, we're not that, the team's not that good just yet, but they have worked themselves into playoff position. They're really not that far out from, getting up a little further. I doubt they get out of the play-in positions. I think that's just too much of a reach. But the team's been winning a lot more than it's been losing. Just fell just short just last night against Dallas.
So that was, they had a tough game. But look, you give up 125 in a game, you're probably going to lose most times. The games that they're winning, they're holding teams under 115 most of the time. So that's kind of the formula. But I watched the game. It happened to be on here. I did not have to use my little special websites that we don't talk about. It was actually on TV live here this morning for me. And what was funny was we had some company coming over, and I was watching the game, and they happened to come in right when the game was coming down to the final seconds. Literally, they walked through the door while I was jumping when Beal missed that shot, thinking he had made it. That was my first impression of people that I gave to people who were coming over. But yeah, the
I
Wiz
think
have
that's a
been
good
playing very
impression. You
well.
got some passion in there. You got
Right.
you want people to see you as somebody who's excited. I mean, unless you're like swearing and like throwing furniture,
No, wasn't anything like that.
nothing that bad.
I really didn't even see the play because again, my focus is on people coming in and then on the TV, I don't know what was happening. I guess was it a good shot? It was a
Mm,
three-pointer, wasn't it? It wasn't a great shot.
no. So the whole thing, this is where I think there's some good discussion to be had here. Is why is Beal the one taking the shot there? Like normally, he's your sharpshooter. Don't get me wrong. The guy is a scorer,
Yeah.
but one, it was kind of a broken up play. Paul Neto saved it really. Gives it back to Beal, and Beal takes a 3 point shot. You're down one. You didn't need to do that.
Yeah.
Still some time on the clock. Plus,
So who do you think
Russell
should have been shooting there?
Westbrook was the one who brought them back into the game. He was the one who was
Yeah.
dominating, 17 of 30. So he was making those shots. And I mean, there was just some questionable decisions because there was a 2-on-1 with like 33 seconds, and they pulled up instead of going for the basket to
Mm.
just kill some more clock. Obviously, you have Doncic, who had an amazing game. The fourth person ever follows in Westbrook's footsteps there with a 30-20 triple double. But
Yeah.
it just, I don't know. Again, we've talked about this before. Scotty's got to go, and a lot of those decisions were with Scotty because it was like not the
Oh, it's,
the just the play design, the pulling, telling them pull up with 33 seconds instead of taking the 2-on-1 break. It was just a frustrating end to the game when you really wanted to see. They came back from 18 points down. Yeah,
right.
and Westbrook was just playing out of his mind, which I mean he has, to be fair, he's been doing for a long time. And
Last few months.
these last few months. But I just don't see. I mean, again, you give it to Beal, but then also the team knows you're giving it to Beal. So moving
Yeah.
around, you had Bertans. I don't think was even in for like the last 3 minutes. Um,
Last five
last
minutes.
5 minutes even,
Yeah.
and so it's just kind of just one of these things. If you wanted to go for a 3 pointer, then and again the play was kind of Beal bounced it off his foot, so that was kind of
Oh, is
the
that what it
mishap. So it
was?
was just
Okay.
kind of it kind
So
of got broken up, but
I think Dallas hit like 6 3-pointers in the fourth
yeah,
quarter,
and
and
Washington had
Washington
one.
only hit one. And like you just mentioned, Bertans wasn't even in the game for the last 5 minutes while Dallas is hitting these threes. Now he was only like 1 for 5 or maybe 1 for 6
But you
from
pay the
three. He wasn't
man.
having a great game.
You pay
That's
the
right.
man
He
to
should be in the game.
yeah.
Come on. That was
If that's what
ridiculous.
I'm
But
just saying,
anyway,
if that's what you want, that's who you put in. I mean,
yeah. But they have had a great month of April.
it was an
This
excellent
was the
month.
first game of May, but they had a great month of April. I think they're 11-3 in their last 14. So they've been playing sure they've had kind of a very light schedule, but again, beat those teams that are in front of you and see what happens. They're solidly in the 10th spot. So the playoffs go 9 plays 10 and the winner advances, the loser goes home, right? And
Yes.
the ninth seed is the home team. And then 7 plays 8. The
Seven goes on,
loser,
and then or seven plays eight. The winner goes on. The loser will play the winner of the 9-10 game, and then
yeah,
the winner of
to see
that,
who gets the
yeah,
eighth seed.
yeah, the winner of that gets the eighth seed. So
Yeah. So it'd be nice to get to at least the eighth seed so they'll have a minimum of 2 chances to advance.
yes,
Right. So even if they lose the first one, they've still got another shot at it. And they have a chance to get to that seed. But they've got a it's not a difficult schedule, but they've got Milwaukee, they've got Atlanta twice. These are both top 5 teams in the East. They've got Charlotte, and they've got Cleveland again.
Charlotte has the eighth seed currently.
Yeah,
Two and a half
and
games. Two
Indiana.
and a half games back from Charlotte. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah.
So they're playing the teams that they can beat. They can beat these teams. I mean, Milwaukee lost to Houston a couple nights ago, so anybody can beat anybody. But they're playing well. It's nice that we're able to kind of nitpick one game
Mm-hmm.
where they couldn't finish at the end. When most of these other games they have been finishing at the end, they'll be within a couple of points, and Westbrook and Beal take over. So it's nice to see him winning games that they should. And they lost a tough one on the road to a good team
On a back to back too. That's the
on a
thing,
back to
right?
back.
So this was a back to back, and seeing the team competitive. Exactly, this is what you want to see. Currently, they
Right.
do have a 3-game lead over the Chicago Bulls and Toronto Raptors
Oh yeah.
for that 10th seed. So I mean,
With like 8 to play,
with
9 to
eight to
play.
play,
What
I
is
think
it?
it is.
8 to play.
So
Yeah.
let's double check that math.
Yeah.
But
So they're sitting pretty. It's 8 or 9. They're sitting pretty to at least get one of the play-in games.
yeah, they do have the probably the roughest schedule out of all the teams left, mostly
Oh,
because of
really?
that. Not based off of opponents, but based off of the fact that it's just such a compressed schedule because of that break that they had at the beginning of the season. So
Oh yeah, they got to fit some of those games in, right?
yeah, so there's
Yeah.
eight games left. 2 of them against Atlanta, 2 of them against Indiana. You got Cleveland, Charlotte, and Milwaukee rounding out and Toronto. If I didn't mention them, rounding out the
Oh, Toronto. Yeah,
so
that's another. Yeah. Okay.
so it's very
So they're in
very
good shape.
doable, very very doable.
Uh, Absolutely. And then then we got the Caps. Now the Caps have not been playing as well, at least the last couple of
So,
games. They had that 3-game sweep
yeah, of the
of the
Islanders, great
Islanders.
play there.
Yeah.
But then back to back losses against the dreaded Penguins.
I hate them. So they've only got now they're down to about 5 games left, maybe even down to 4 or 5 games left. I think it's 5. But anyway, so they've got a playoff spot locked up. It really doesn't matter who they're going to play. It's going to be a war. They got the Islanders, the Bruins, and the Penguins. It's going to be one of those. No matter what happens, it's going to be probably a 7-game war. But it's concerning that Ovi's hurt, that he hasn't played in 4 straight games. I believe the first time ever in his career that he sat out 4 straight for injury reasons. So that's a little bit worrisome because he's always played through. Hopefully, it's a strategy by the coach, right? To say, look, we're locked in. It doesn't matter what happens the rest of the year. Get some rest. Let's have you come back strong. I don't know, but that's a little bit. If he doesn't play, there's a big reason why. I'm a little worried. I'm a little scared.
I wasn't too worried after the first loss to the Penguins. The 3-0 loss to the Penguins was a little bit more concerning, and that was actually the one that took the Penguins above Washington in the rankings there. So 71
Hmm.
points for Pittsburgh, 69 for Washington. You mentioned that great 3-game stretch there against the Islanders. We know the team can play well. You do hope that they bounce back. They do just have 5 games left
Yeah.
against some familiar opponents, and with that, that should hopefully boost the team a little bit because Philadelphia is 2 of those 5 games,
Oh,
and so
nice. They're
Capitals
terrible.
love playing against those
Yeah.
Flyers. So we'll see how that goes. So it's 2 games against New York, 2 against Philadelphia, and then Boston to round out the season. So
Which New York? The
the
Rangers?
Rangers,
Okay, so 2 Rangers, two
2
Flyers, and
Flyers,
who?
and the Boston Bruins.
Boston. Okay. All
So
right. That'll probably be one of those games where it'll be 0-0. They're just going to try and get through it just to get out
get
no
healthy, get
injuries.
healthy.
Yeah, yeah. Nobody cares who wins. All right. I've got this little critter here. Let me get this little critter
we
just
we
climbing on me. What are you
we
doing?
have. Is that our new mascot for Washington?
That's
Is
it's our
that
new
what
mascot.
we're going for now?
Well, if we're going to be called the Washington football team Moonlights, because
The
that's the name of the kitten there.
It's
I
probably
don't think
better
Moonlight's
than the
going to fly.
Belters, which I pointed out. I pointed out to somebody just this weekend that the Belters is because of the Beltway. So it's not like we had joked.
Oh,
Yeah, we
really?
had joked that it's this. We're talking about belting out songs, which to me is
Yeah.
better than calling ourselves the Belters because of the Beltway. No one likes the Beltway. Why would you ever call yourself anything about that god-forsaken monstrosity that is the Beltway? Like,
I know, right?
but yes,
Oh,
the
jeez.
Belters for the Beltway. So it's abysmal.
I got you. I had no idea that's what it was
So
for. Yeah, why would
Moonlight
you
would be
name it
better than
after?
that.
All right, we'll call them the Washington Football Team Moonlighters.
Well, when we get to the draft, I might mention something about the name there as well. But let's go ahead and talk about the Washington Nationals real quick. 11-12. Coming back. They're tied there with the Philadelphia Phillies and the New York Mets in the National League East. They've won the last three, 6 for 4 in their last 10. I mentioned the team was going to work their way back. I
Yeah,
gave them a long time to get there, and they've been steadily working their way there.
yeah. I don't have a good feeling about this team. I don't like what's going on. Sure, they're only 11-12 and they're right there, like a half a game out of first because the entire East is not playing particularly well. I just don't have a good vibe about it. They're not hitting well. The pitching has been very spotty. Max was bad his last game, and then you got Corbin who was very good his last game. But their two big offseason acquisitions, Schwarber and Bell, have been terrible. Sure, Schwarber has got two walk-off
Yeah, you
bombs,
can't. I wouldn't call
but
that
those are his only
terrible.
home runs.
Yeah.
Well, but he's hitting
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
.220.
He's not. But you're so. I think the offense right now is going to be sporadic because you don't have Soto in there. Trey Turner's earning himself
Oh, Trey Turner is just
both
amazing.
at the plate and on the pitch there, just doing an amazing job. He's going to get paid whether or not that's by the Nationals or not is another matter.
Don't get me started.
But they do play the Marlins again tonight, again today at 1:05, so you can catch
It's
them.
sure's day.
So we'll see. So I'm not too concerned, right? So we're talking this is
Okay.
a normal full season. They've
Yeah.
got they've got 23 games to what is a very long season. So I think that they can, as long as they fix this, right? So I'm not concerned about the play this first quarter. I'm more concerned like how is the team going to work itself into the All-Star break? How's it coming out of the All-Star break and then closing? Those are like the three big. This essentially is like a preseason still. Like these games matter. I'm not saying that they
Okay.
don't matter, but you're still trying to get, in rhythm. You need to find out what you need at the trade deadline. Are you going to be a team? This is a team that's hovering around 500. I think that that's probably where they're going to be for most of the season is around 500. I don't think they're going to get more than 10 games above 500, and if they do, great. But like you said, they're not a team that when you watch them that you're just like, yes, this is an impressive baseball team. But I think they're a
Hmm.
good baseball team, and I just think that they have some things that they need to figure out, and this is the time to have those issues and hopefully get those solved as you head in, to the later stages of the season. So I'm not too worried. And again, I mean, they haven't. I don't believe I'm looking back. So they were swept by the Dodgers, but outside of that, the Dodgers have looked awful as of late.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
um, but outside of that, they've been splitting series and doing what they can. Um, they have been outscored quite a bit in those losses that they've had.
Right.
But they've also won a few games which you didn't really expect them to win 1-0. That's not a stat line National fans are very familiar with, at
Right.
least on the winning side. So I think the team's getting some reasonable pitching. We're getting help from elsewhere in the lineup. So we'll see if it can continue. You want Trey Turner to stay hot. You want Soto to come back healthy. I saw some people wanting to toy around with the idea because it's a shoulder injury for Soto, putting him at first base so he doesn't have to throw the ball. But at least because apparently he can hit right now. He's okay hitting.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, what are you going to do with your other two first basemen?
you'll figure out
One of
something.
whom you paid a lot of money to bring him in the off season. You're just going to put him on the bench,
You'll figure
and
something out.
you'll figure, okay. I think that's a terrible idea. You wait till he gets healthy enough to where he
That's
can
fair.
throw the ball.
I think again they're not in desperation mode. This is still early on.
Right.
This is definitely Soto's health is way more important long term, and the Nationals have shown that they care about that long term health more than the
More
immediate
than
games,
most.
right? So it's just like making some questionable decisions with pitchers, way back when. But we'll see how that continues to pan out. Like I said, you mentioned they're half a game back. Technically, they are behind Philadelphia percentage wise,
Okay.
but not back a game at this point. 13-14 at 481 for Philadelphia. 11-12, 478 for
Yeah.
Washington.
Well, you're a little bit more optimistic than I am with this team. So hopefully you're right.
We'll see. We also did have some soccer going on. I know that you're not the biggest of soccer supporters, over here. We used to go to our games when we were in Germany together, some of those FC games. But our DC United team did not play well last night.
No, they're terrible.
Oh,
is Ben Olsen still the coach? I haven't been paying attention. He was a coach for a long time.
I will admit, I loosely follow the DC United. I will be going to some games when I can get a chance, and then they'll probably pull me in a little bit more, similar to my Caps fandom. That's what's hindering on the fandom for that is I got to go to some games here. I'm looking forward to it. I did get my second vaccine, so my second dose. So
good for you.
I've got just a little bit, and then hopefully things can get back to normal. And speaking of normal, we had a real draft. There was people there. There was Goodell's chair, which was a weird shtick to have, but fine. It was what it was. And now we're going to enter the game. It is Washington's 2021 football draft. So what do we got here for the NFL draft? Overall, we're going to go pick by pick here, Stoner. But overall, kind of what's your feeling here?
Well, let me start off by saying this, that the NFL draft is one of my favorite events, if you want to call it an event, a 3-day event of the entire sports calendar. I absolutely love the NFL draft. And here's why. Because whatever I think, my credibility of who Washington is going to draft is on par with anybody else. And I'm just saying anybody's credibility is equal when it comes to the NFL draft. Because you know why? Nobody knows anything. I can promise you that. Nobody knows anything, and we're all on the same playing field, as Moonlight interrupts again. And so strap in, Nathan. I'm about to go into story time here.
Okay, story time.
Okay. Here's story time. Yeah, strap in. And here's why I say that. At any other time during the year, I don't feel like my understanding and knowledge of what's going on in the world of sports is on equal par with the national guys and especially the local guys who have their sources and anything. But you know what? My sources are just as good as anybody else's sources when it comes to the draft and trying to figure out who is drafting who, right? So let's take, for example, the third pick in the draft, which was San Francisco. That was the most widely talked about pick, right? San Francisco moved up to number 3. What we knew for sure is Jacksonville was taking Trevor Lawrence, and the Jets were taking Zach Wilson. Everybody knew that. Every mock draft was exactly the same, but where everything got messed up or changed was with the third pick, right? So you heard some people, and I'm going to use just one example. I'm just picking on him because I don't like him. But Colin Cowherd said he is 100% certain that the 49ers are taking Mac Jones, okay? And he has his sources, and he gave his explanation, and he was 100% certain that that was happening. Well, let me tell you something, Nathan. I have a source also, and my source called me earlier this week. Okay, and this is what he said. I'm going to tell you. I'm not going to tell you who my source is because you can't give out your source.
Can't give up your source.
Right. So this is what he said. He called me earlier in this week, and he said, look here, I know who San Francisco is going to take. And I said, oh really? How is it that you know who San Fran is going to take? And he said, listen, my ex-wife's lawyer right? Who he said was an amazing attorney. That's why he was sitting in a 1 bedroom apartment talking to me on a phone that had like 6.5 minutes left of time on it because he couldn't afford anything else. He must be a great attorney. Took him for more than half his money. So his ex-wife's attorney has a partner in the law firm, right? And this partner's daughter has a volleyball coach, right? And this volleyball coach has a landscaper who works at his house,
This is good.
right?
This is great.
Yeah. So this landscaper, right, last week or the week before last was actually in Vegas for this big landscaping convention, right? All the landscapers from around the country, I guess, go to this, maybe even around the world. So at this landscaping convention was a guy by the name of Stephen Toma. I think that's what his name was, right? So Stephen Toma happens to be the grandson of a guy by the name of George Toma. And if you've ever heard the name George Toma, he was like for decades and decades, he was like the NFL's grass guy, the guy not the weed guy, but the grass guy who
takes care of the
took care
fields.
of all
Yeah.
the fields,
Okay.
right? He was the soup for all the Super Bowls, and he happened to be based in San Francisco. He took care of San Francisco's field, right? So the grandson was the current or is the current guy who takes care of the fields in San Francisco, right? So after the convention, a bunch of these guys were including the landscaper of the volleyball coach of the attorney's daughter, right? So they were all hanging out, having drinks and everything. And this guy's telling the boys, he says, look, I was at one of my landscaper guys from the company that I own was over at Kyle Shanahan's house working on his yard, right? And lo and behold, he's sitting there, and you know who comes out of the house?
Who comes out of the house?
Justin Fields' sister's accountant comes out of the house, right? And you know what he does? He looks at the landscaper and he does this. I don't know if you can see this. He does this like that. And the landscaper interpreted that as Trey Lance, not happening. We're not drafting this guy. That's what he interpreted.
Justin Fields, because it was Justin Fields' accountant's sister. No, it was Trey
No.
Lance's. Because you said Fields.
Because he was saying.
Okay.
Right. But he's saying Trey Lance not happening, as in Justin Fields is happening.
Okay.
So my source said, look, I'm 100% certain that San Francisco is drafting Justin Fields at number 3. And so I took that to heart all this week, and I said, Justin Fields is going 3rd because my source. Well, my source was wrong. And you know who else was wrong? Whoever Colin Cowherd's source is. And his source might have been Kyle Shanahan himself. But it's Lion season in the NFL.
Teams put a lot of smoke screens out there purposely.
And nobody knows anything, which is my point. Yep. Nobody knows anything. So I know as much as anybody out there when it comes to the draft. You can unbuckle your seatbelt. Story time is finished.
I appreciate the long story to get to that point that everybody has just the same sources and they're all garbage. And to be fair, in our own mock draft last week, go ahead and check that out on our channel. We had a mock draft, and Fields was the guy there, and that was that's who they really thought that was going to be taken. I don't believe too many people really thought, even Colin Cowherd, right, knew Mac Jones wasn't going to be the pick, but you gotta be certain. You can't be like, oh, I think this might. No, you got to be certain when you're making these, picks. That's how you get there. You're absolutely right. We're on the same playing field. Mel Kiper started off as just some Joe Schmo who just enjoyed the draft, and he's made it into a $1 billion industry in itself. So
that's right.
It's
and how many times has he been mocked by general managers and other teams?
You got Mayock, who's making awful picks and that used to be his job too. And it's just like,
right.
It is a big guessing game. No boards are the same. You mentioned everyone could safely assume Lawrence is going first. Wilson was going second, and from there, yes, there was
That's right.
there was
Right.
some changes happening. The first one that surprised me was not like Trey Lance going third is acceptable. Like that's good. I
Mhm.
probably would have, if I were San Fran, that's probably the guy. I probably would have gone Fields, but Trey Lance is an acceptable pick there. Pitts, I was high on Pitts. I was just like somebody's
Mhm.
got to take this guy, especially before he gets to the NFC East territory.
Mhm.
So that one was good. But then when Cincinnati was up, and not that Jamar Chase is a bad selection there, but that's to me where the draft just kind of like turned on its head
Changed.
because
Yeah.
I thought for certain they were going to go Peni Sewell, right? Like they were going to go after the most highly regarded offensive tackle to protect Joe Burrow for a decade,
Mhm.
and then they pick Jamar Chase, and I'm just like, alrighty, let's buckle in. Let's go ahead and let's do this. This is where the draft is going to get fun. You had Devontae Smith sliding. You had trades um, within division rivals. So now
Mhm.
I still think Dallas got fleeced. Like you moved up and you moved back and you only got a third round selection for it. Seemed a little cheap to me, but hey, what do I know? We'll
You're just a fan, not a
Yep,
GM,
just a
right?
fan, not a GM.
Hashtag. Right.
So we can talk about the draft as a whole, but I really want to talk about Washington and their
The
draft.
Washington's
They went in
picks.
there
Yep.
and they had a plan. So and they kind of stuck to it, and I loved it because they were like, we have these needs and we have these desires, and the desire was for more speed and more
Mhm.
just pure athletes, and they got that. Now I
Mhm.
posted on my Twitter. You can hit us up on our Twitter at Ref the District, and you'll find myself and Stoner out there as well. I posted on mine. There was the RAS, right, the relative athletic score, where Washington was just off the charts with all their picks.
Mhm.
But then there was the uh, what is it, the NFL's like advanced stats, like the whatever they call it, where we weren't even the Washington wasn't even in the top five.
Hmm.
But so it's kind of I want to see the numbers there. I'm a big numbers guy. I love seeing that kind of stuff. I really want to see it because you have that 19th pick. A lot of fans, yourself included, really
Mhm.
thought they were going to go with Notre Dame's JOK. Uh,
Right.
he slides all the way back to the 52nd pick, where Cleveland traded up and
Yeah.
took him right after our Washington's 51st pick. We took a guy that was mentioned, but a lot of people thought maybe he was the second round. This is Jamin Davis. So athletically gifted, but only one season as starter. We have Youngin Tai in our comments right now says, look, I get teams didn't need linebacker this year, but Parsons and Bolton were the best two pure linebackers in the draft, in Ty's opinion.
Mm.
Parsons, I can agree
Well,
with. Parsons, I think it was definitely the headliner for the
sure.
linebackers, and it's unfortunate that he had to go to our division rival, the Dallas Cowboys.
Right. Right.
So now I just hope that he doesn't pan out. But
And who's the other linebacker that he
he
mentioned?
said Bolton.
I'm not sure who Bolton is, but
I'd have to check to see who he's referring
ask him
to. So Ty, yeah,
to
go ahead and let us know.
who they're
So we do
referencing.
stream live every Sunday. I didn't mention this before, so we stream live. You can either catch us live or we will be sharing the broadcast later as well. So just make sure you like and subscribe to this page so that way you know when we are going live. And if you do watch live, like Ty is doing, you can interact with us during it. So if Ty, if you're still watching, let us know who you're talking about with the Bolton pick. I, for one, am after watching some of the Jamin Davis stuff that they were showing on him and seeing those scores, those athletic scores,
Hmm.
I'm okay with this. I think this is where we just have to trust the fact that we've got a defensive-minded coach who was a linebacker himself, Jack Del Rio, with this defense, also a linebacker himself.
Hmm.
They know what they want with their linebackers. So this is a guy who's going to, I think, thrive behind this defensive line. Like he's just going to be filling holes and he's going to be flying everywhere. And just I at first I was a little stunned, you know,
Yeah.
but now I'm loving the pick. I think that it's a good pickup for Washington.
Well, when 19 came around, and JOK was there, and pretty much everybody thought, I won't say knew because nobody knows, but everybody thought they were going linebacker. Everybody said, oh, it's going to be JOK. And then they announced Jamin Davis, which I don't know why we're not calling him Jammin. I mean, Jammin is an awesome name. His name should be Jammin Jamin or just Jammin Davis. But anyway, I'm sure that probably tried to stick at some point. But I've seen him play because he's an SEC guy. I saw him play against Florida, and he was an impressive guy, but nobody where you thought, well, he's a first rounder. He's going to be the third linebacker taken. Nothing like that. But apparently his not combines, they don't have that. His pro day was off the charts. His speed was, what was he, 4.43
It
something?
wasn't 4.3. I think he was a 4.4, but it was.
So,
It was
okay,
just,
so it was 4.4 something, and he's got a 42-inch vertical. And check him out in some of his photos. He's got like an 18 pack going on. So
he's
he's just an athletic freak who only played really 1 year, but he played extremely well. His biggest highlight seems to be that 85-yard interception against Tennessee. So I didn't
which
think
you can
he
see
would be
that
the
you can
guy.
see the athletic ability right there
Oh,
because he's
absolutely.
stretching out to get that interception, plays the play really well, stretches out, and then just outruns everybody.
Yeah, yeah, it was extremely impressive. He seems like an impressive guy. His character. He comes from a military family. Both of his parents were in the army, and so he has that yes sir, no sir type attitude, and so that fits well because Ron is a military guy himself. So I think he'll fit in extremely well. And then you put him, like you said, in that defense behind that stud defensive line, and it seems like he's going to fit in great. So now you've got how many first rounders on that defense? Obviously,
Well, you
the
were
last
essentially,
five picks have been
yeah,
defense, but then
you
you
replaced
add,
Kerrigan is what you did here because
but yeah,
Kerrigan's gone. That was a first rounder. Now you
but you
get
also
Jamin
brought
Davis.
in, but you also brought in Jackson, the corner. He was a first rounder. Landon Collins was a first rounder.
I believe
So I mean,
Landon
they've got
Collins was second round.
okay, the second
Pretty
rounder.
sure second round.
So you've got like 6 or 7 guys on that defense who are first rounders, and they were already very good last year. So I think it's an excellent pick. It's exactly what this defense needed. If there was one hole that they had, that was it. That they didn't have an outside linebacker that could cover. They didn't have that at all.
Yeah,
Cole Holcomb is pretty good, but he's not spectacular. He's not as
he's a
athletic.
jag.
I mean,
He's a
if
jag. I think
yeah, I think
you
he's a little
think a
better
little
than
better.
Jag.
I don't know. I think if you
You
put
don't like him. I kind of like
I
him.
I just think that when you're talking about inside linebacker play, I think Holcomb is a decent person to have, and he's a player that teams need to have because you're for Washington, right? You mentioned they've got studs all over the place. They're going to have to pay a lot of those players to stay. Cole Holcomb is a
Right.
guy that you can keep around on the cheap, and he's
Yeah.
serviceable, but he's just that, right? He's not somebody who's
Okay.
really going to wow you. Where I think Jamin Davis on the inside, because I do believe that's where they plan to play him is on the inside, not the outside, which they did draft a couple of edge rushers later on that we'll get to. Um, but I think this is somebody who it fills an immediate hole for Washington, and he's going to be really exciting to watch play.
Yeah, there were some experts that say he was a reach at 19. Maybe he was a second round grade, but I always like when a team goes and gets their guy. They said this is our guy. We're not going to chance it that he won't be there in the second round, and that's what they did. And in the same manner, that they did not have a quarterback that they absolutely loved that they felt they needed to trade up in the first round to get.
Yes.
So it's exactly what you want. You're not going to reach for a quarterback that you hope is going to be good. If you don't love him, don't do anything about it. And then you do have a guy that you absolutely love, and maybe he's a second round grade, but you grab him so that you don't worry about losing out on him. So you have to think that they got exactly what they needed and I think he'll work out. And again, we only refer to him from here on out as Jamin Davis because he is. That's
It's
a
not his
way
name.
better name.
Jamin Davis. I'll give you that part.
Jamin. All right.
So here's where I was team trade back. I tweeted that out. I was definitely
Mm-hmm.
team trade back. Uh, I just think that, when again, this is the reason why when I first came out with the pick, I was just like, not exactly who I thought. This is somebody who I would have taken in the second round. Would have been better to get some more picks. Um, but it takes two to tango, right? So no
That's
one,
right.
I don't think anyone, they didn't have a trade partner to try to jump up because I do think that they probably could have gotten Davis a little bit later. But then again, a lot of people thought that JOK was going to be going. So I mean, I think there's a lot at play there, and that's why in the end, I like the pick for Washington. I think that he'll be impactful. For the team, fills a need, very athletic, and he's going to be, I think he is probably early front runner for defensive player rookie of the year. Won't go that far, as far
Well,
as say
that's
player.
easy now on that. That's a
Defensive.
little. That's
So linebackers see a lot more of the action than you would with some of the corners, the first round corners that were taken. The
mm-hmm.
game translates a little bit easier for them at linebacker, and then you have this guy who's a stud, athletic freak who's going to be playing behind the Washington defensive line is just going to be in playmaker heaven. So I think you're going to see some highlights from him. I think you're going to see some great statistics from him, and that's why I'd put him as, not just because I'm a homer, but because he just is in a position. And this is what you have to think about when it comes to the draft. Is you need it's not just about a player who's good, it's about a player who's good and put in the right position to succeed. And that's exactly what Jamin Davis is. He's a good player who's been put in the right position to succeed. Unlike some of the other picks that we might talk about later as we get into the later rounds, not for Washington, but where you saw some of the other players fall, is I don't think that they're going to be in a position to be successful, and it's going to make the Washington's decision not to go QB, even though that is a need that everyone is very well aware of. Washington needs a QB. They didn't go for it, and I'm with you. The fact that they didn't trade up to get one and made the decision that we are just going to fill the holes that we have this draft. Like, we're not going to reach for a QB and put them in a position where they don't have a team to support them. I think it was good. I think that it was great. I did think that they were going to go for a QB in round 3 or 4, but that didn't happen. And I especially thought that after they took Sam Cosmi with their second round pick at 51, because I was just like, great, you have your linebacker, you have your offensive tackle. This is where you find your QB, stash him for a year behind Fitzpatrick, and you're set. And it didn't happen. But Sam Cosmi is somebody I was really excited about, largely because in our mock draft, Kai took him with the Chargers pick, and I thought that was high. I thought Kai taking him for the Chargers a little bit high, but Kai did break it down for us on like just how athletic this person is, how driven that Sam Cosmi is. Another one of these people who is just excited to be, not just excited to be here, but is excited to be here and ready to work. You mentioned the character that Washington was looking for. So they went for athletes, and they went for athletes with good character, and they knocked it out of the park here, I think, with the second round pick with Sam Cosmi, because I do believe that it was the right area to take him, and I think that he's impressive. I'm not going to go as far as say he's Trent Williams territory, because Trent Williams will be a Hall of Famer, but I do think Sam Cosmi could be the left tackle for Washington for 5 to 10 years.
Well, let's hope he is, but what I haven't heard from anybody is I haven't heard anybody say he's the starting left tackle day one. Everybody said he's going to have to compete for that job with guys that are already on the roster. So it's not like Jamin Davis, who is going to be your starting linebacker day one. There's no question about that. But with Cosmi, nobody is saying that. They're not sold that he's not who's the Penei Sewell that you're you're locking him in right away. So let's hope. There is a lot of upside to him. He's a 4-year player, a 3-year starter, I believe. I may be botching that, but he's played a lot of games in a big conference against some excellent defensive teams. So I'm excited about that he has a lot of experience, which is the exact opposite of Davis, who has very little experience. This guy's been playing for years. And he did opt out. If you remember, he did opt out with a couple of games left. He said, "Look, we're not going anywhere special this year. I've had a couple of guys roll up on me and scared me about getting knee injuries. I'm done with this year. I'm going to get ready for the draft because that's my future." I still don't know how to interpret that. As far as is that just smart, or is that kind of an issue of a me type attitude,
I
right?
personally see it as smart,
I
but
don't
it does
know.
depend on the player, right? So you have a player like Sam Cosmi who ends up getting drafted in the second round. You had
Yeah.
players who opted out, Trey Lance, Micah Parsons, who are taken, within those first 15 picks. So it
Mm-hmm.
is very much like this is their livelihood. They're not getting paid. I know there's a lot of controversy around this with the college football scene on the fact that they don't get a paycheck, but they're given education, and that should like there's a whole lot of stuff that goes into play here that maybe will be another ref the district topic later on. Um, but this is somebody who had the future and wanted to make sure that that future was intact, because you get injured. Look at the Alabama linebacker who went undrafted and then signed with the
Mm-hmm.
Jaguars, and will be put on the non-football injury list, right? So if you have this stuff that happens, you might not get picked. You have players who opted out, like Jamie Newman, who
Mm-hmm.
opted out, who you made the move to Georgia to make the big splash and possibly be a first round pick this year, ends up opting out and goes undrafted,
Mm-hmm.
and then signs with Philadelphia, which I thought was an interesting signing by him. But I think there might have been some proximity with Wake Forest and stuff like that. So we'll see. I'm not sure. It was very interesting to see his fall from grace there. We talked about him on our show with the mid round ones. He doesn't even go mid round. So I don't know. I think that for the most part, I think I'm okay with the college players opting out if they feel that's what's in the best interest for them. And as far as Cosme was concerned, he was right, because he could have been injured in those last few games, and then all of a sudden he's not
Sure.
being picked in the second round and going to a team where he does have that option to the ability to compete, right? So this he's not being stashed. He could become a starting left tackle in the NFL, and that is a lot more money than if he was picked later or not picked at all because some guy rolled up on his knee, and now all of a sudden when he's doing his pro day he didn't wow, because this was Sam Cosmi was somebody who wowed people during his pro day, and that's where you get that athletic score where it was just again above like 9.5. It was a great score from him. And again, I like the athleticism at the tackle position. I know some people are concerned when you think about the old heads who are concerned he's got short arms, right? He's got 33-inch arms. Can he pull? Is he a big dude who can get it in front of another big dude? That's what's important. If you can work on the hand stuff, and I think that they're wanting to coach up these athletic guys rather than take guys who might have had some solid film. Which both our first two picks here with Washington had solid film on them. They showed that they can play, and like you mentioned, play in a conference that both of them played in conferences, Power Five conferences that have competition at those positions. So.
Yeah. Well, don't get me wrong about for Sam Cosmi. I think it's a no-brainer from his end. But just think about the rest of the guys on the team who have zero chance of ever playing beyond the college level, and they see one of their best players say, "Hey, sorry guys, I got better things ahead of me. You're just going to have to figure it out for yourself. I'm just going to abandon you."
But then you're talking about those players who don't have the chance to be drafted. Now all of a sudden they do have the chance to play in a college game that they love, because now all of a sudden you have to fill the tackle position. Maybe
Yeah.
the people who opt
Oh,
out
that's one
open.
guy.
Yeah, sure, but like I don't know. I'm okay with it. Like, it doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
I would be interested in knowing. This might be something we can ask our friend of the show, uh, Kwame. Is that something that would bother him as a teammate? That seeing the teammates go for their future. I'm interested, Kwame. Go ahead and let us know your opinions on that. I know that you pop in from time to time to watch the show, and so maybe we'll at you on Twitter with Ref the District to get your opinion on that. Here we have in the third round, pick 74, and this is where probably the most angst that I saw on Twitter came from for Washington
Mm-hmm.
fans was a guy
Mm-hmm.
that they just didn't know. They did not, know Benjamin Saint Juste,
Juiced.
Just Benjamin Saint
Yep.
Just.
Saint Juiced.
So, what were your opinions when you saw this one come across the screen for you?
Well, first and foremost, never heard of the guy until he was drafted. And then you start obviously doing your research and you, like you said, you go on Twitter and you see the different experts or just fans talking about him. He has, again, like the first two guys we talked about, he has incredible athleticism. He's perfect size to be
He's a
a
tall
top
corner.
corner.
He is a very tall
Yeah,
corner.
he's 6'3", right around 200 pounds, long arms, very athletic, but not a lot of experience, right? But again, he fits that mold. There's obviously a theme here with the Ron Rivera drafts and these players. Athletic, smart, really smart, character guys. Here's a guy who went to Michigan first out of high school. He's from Canada. He goes to Michigan and he graduates in 2 years from Michigan, and then he goes on to Minnesota, and he played for a few years, and he's got some very good tape as well. Like everybody else who's drafted in the third round or above, they're going to have good tape, or else they wouldn't get drafted. But I was surprised that they went corner at that point in the third round. They've already got two high paid starting corners, right? They've also got Jimmy Moreland, the People's Corner, who is a slot guy, but they're very high on him. They've got Danny Johnson. They've got Stroman. They seem to be pretty set in the corner spot. So I was a little surprised that they went corner. Although everybody seemed to say draft a corner if you can. I wasn't one of them. I thought they were pretty solid, but again, I'm just a fan, not a GM. But I don't know a whole lot about him. But everything that you read about him, he seems to be the kind of guy that's going to fit exactly what Ron Rivera and this coaching staff wants.
Yeah, I think this one is going to be the most interesting one to follow through the preseason here as we head up into the season, because where does he fit in with the rest of the
Mm-hmm.
lineup is going to be an interesting thing. Is he going to be? He's
Mm-hmm.
got great shuttle scores, so he's got that quick movement. So is he your slot corner? Is he because of his size? Is he the one you're putting up against not linebackers, but is he the one you're putting up against those tight ends that
Mm.
are dominating the league right now? The athletic tight ends. So this one will be interesting to watch to see where he blooms. They've hit on, Ron Rivera and co. have hit on DBs. They picked an
Sure.
excellent one last year in Cam Curl for safety. So this one, he'll be an interesting one to watch to see where exactly he fits into the defense. Um, not as so again. This was probably the most surprising pick I think for Washington. This is one where I see a lot of
I think so.
angst in with taking the person that nobody knew. Right. Their
A
second,
lot of
their
lot of angst from over here
Yeah.
for sure.
Their second third round pick at number 82 was not one that people were upset with at all. I think everybody I saw on Washington's Twitter was just ecstatic to get Brown out of
Mm-hmm.
North Carolina. So
Mm-hmm.
how are you with taking a receiver? We've talked about this before. The wide receiver room is crowded at this point.
It's very crowded. Yeah, yeah.
But here's a
So this
here's a guy who's got 4.4 speed and he's a little shorter than I think that was probably the one thing I did see was people were like, he's not as tall as you wanted. You know, we've got a lot of short, fast guys. A lot of people are looking to get tall. We got another short. You know, do we have the Smurfs again? Is this something where we're rolling deep with the guys who are just above around 6 foot, but are just lightning quick?
Well, some of the measurables against on this guy is, like you said, the speed is off the charts. Even though he ran like a 4.37, which or no, he's the one that ran like a 4.4. I don't know. I get these guys
fast.
mixed up. He's really fast, but he's still not even. He's barely in the top 5 on Washington as far as fast, because there's a lot of fast guys here. Um, but one of the interesting stat I saw on him is that he has 49. There were 49 contested throws to him in his career at North Carolina. Contested throws meaning somebody was covering him pretty well. He caught all 49 of those balls. That's impressive. That means he's got great hands. But like you said, the receiver room was already fairly crowded. Now, Steven Sims has already bought his plane ticket. He has already put his
He bought a house. He is
on
putting
the
it on the market right now.
Oh yeah, he's gone.
I think it's going to be.
But there's a lot of guys in there.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting to see. We've listed them off before. I don't have the list in front of me right now as far as the entire room, but
I got
you got them. Okay, let's go ahead and read this off here because we're going to add another name. We'll go ahead and talk about real quick a 7th-round pick that they took, Dax Milne out of BYU with the 258.
He ain't making the squad.
I'd be surprised if he did. This looks like somebody you stash on your practice squad, unless he really amazes people with his special teams play. But I with guys like Brown on there, if Brown can catch a punt, that'd be great. Can we just have anybody other than Steve Sims Jr. catch punts for Washington?
Yeah, right.
So let's hear the list.
All right, so here's your 7. To me, here are your 7 locks.
Locks. Okay, and so because that's about as many as they'll take. I don't think they're going to take more than 7.
Right, maybe 8. Maybe 8. Depends obviously on all your other roster spots and what's going on there. We got McLaurin, Curtis Samuel, Cam Sims, Kelvin Harmon, Adam Humphries, AGG, Gandy Golden, right, and Brown, right, De'Ami Brown, your 3rd-round draft pick. I think all those guys are pretty much locks.
Okay, that's an interesting.
Barring injury, we're not talking about an injury related.
So who did you cut from the list? Who's the ones cut on this?
All right, so you've got obviously Isaiah Wright.
Yeah, Isaiah Wright. Steve Sims Jr.'s out.
Steven Sims Jr. You got DeAndre Carter, who they signed to be their punt returner, right, in the offseason. Not like to a big deal or anything, but still you signed him. Then you got like your Jeff Badette, and then you got your Dax Milne, who you just drafted.
Yeah.
So in the 7th round. So that's a crowded room, assuming everybody's healthy and performing to their abilities. The only one that I would contest in that group, I think, is Gandy Golden, because he really didn't do a whole lot last year, but they invested a 4th rounder. Is he a 4th rounder? Yeah. And he's only in his 2nd year, so and it was all injuries, and so I think they're going to give him a fair shot.
Where I disagree with you here is I think the one who's on the bubble.
Here we go.
Most on the bubble is it's not Humphries, although I do think Humphries is. I don't think Humphries is as much of a lock as you would think.
Oh, such a lock.
I think Harmon is the one who we're going to be seeing come, cut time. That is going to be a name we're probably going to hear called. I think that he did show flashes his rookie season, but he was injured last year. He's not a Ron Rivera guy. This is not somebody who Ron Rivera picked. It's somebody he inherited. So now, where I think that benefits Harmon is he does seem like a high character guy. So that helps. He does seem like a guy who's been putting in the work. But again, he's not somebody Ron Rivera took. So you could see.
And he was like a 6th rounder.
Yeah, he was a late round pick. So I can see him missing the cut, and then somebody like Dax Milne being a surprise keep
Dax
for at least it's a cool name, like, right? So,
That's right.
but BYU target for the second overall pick, you know, yeah, I think that the room's crowded. I think that'll be interesting. Brown's going to be there, and I'm really excited to see this. I did see a good tweet. I don't have it in front of me, so I won't be able to let you know exactly who it was, but it made me chuckle. It was just like Washington has all the wide receivers that Fitzpatrick needs, like just the right qualities where they can go up and grab the ball and then chase down the people who intercept it. Like it was great. I was just like, that's wonderful. That's
Right, right.
perfect. But no,
Or you know that viral photo when he had that YOLO ball where he just threw it up while somebody was grabbing him, right?
his helmet's
So
being pulled sideways.
yeah, so he's like thinking in that moment, or if you can transport him forward in time, he's just thinking, look, I've got a bunch of guys. I've got Brown, I've got Samuel, I've got McLaurin, I've got all these guys. I'm just gonna throw it up there, and one of my guys is gonna come down with it. But here's a question for you. So you don't seem to be a Harmon guy, right?
I like him. I just think that he's the one that's going to be on the bubble. I don't think that he showed enough promise his rookie season to think that he's a lock this year. And I know a lot of fans disagree with me. I think a lot of fans are like, he's going to come back. This is a late round pick who had like what was it, 300 yards his rookie season. You know,
that's what I was going to ask you. I was going to ask you, how many catches do you think he had his rookie year?
He had what, like 39? Like, I mean, we're not talking huge numbers, right?
39?
How many? You remind me.
It was something like that.
Yeah.
It was something like that. But I'm saying you're poo-pooing 39 catches for a rookie.
Name me the other wide receivers he was competing with. You're gonna, and remember, this is a 3-13 Washington team. Okay,
right.
It was playing from behind a lot. Yeah, they're chucking up the ball to whoever is out there. Harmon, I'm not saying Harmon's a bad player. I like him. I would like to see him make the team and see if he can build upon this. But we're talking about a guy who was a late round pick, who had like 300 something yards his rookie season. Again, showed promise, but then was injured. He's not somebody who was taken by the new regime. This is somebody I think that is on the bubble, and I think some fans will be surprised. You know, there's always names that pop up during the preseason games that people fall in love with, and they're gonna go away. And I think that Harmon is just somebody that I think fans, you know, fell in love with, and they're going to be surprised when he ends up getting cut, because that wide receiver room is crowded, and it's crowded with players with speed. Not that Harmon isn't fast, just Harmon's coming back from injury, and so it'll be interesting.
Well, I don't think he was a speed guy anyway.
Yeah.
I think he was just a good route runner.
Big target, yeah.
Yeah. And by the way, De'Ami Brown, another one, he opted out of their bowl game, their Orange Bowl game, to get ready for the draft. So there are a few guys here who are just kind of opting out. I mean, I don't know what that means. Again, I'm just kind of pointing it out. I have no idea if that means if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I have no idea.
I think that it's an individual choice, and that I think that even on that basis, team by team, it's going to be different. There's going to be some teams where they're going to be like, no, you know, we don't appreciate that kind of mentality. And then there's a bunch of other programs where they're probably just like, hey, we understand it. I think North Carolina is probably going to be one of those, like, we understand it. This bowl game is just like the 15th best bowl game that's out there out of, you know, like 40. Right. You know, maybe even that's probably high for North Carolina. So it's like the 20th best bowl game. You know, it's okay to sit it out, right? Like, you know, I think that when you get to like the Alabamas and stuff like that, where those programs are like, no, you need to be playing because this is a national championship level.
Sure,
that's where I think that's where the players might have more, or the team itself might have more to say on the whole. You don't need to be opting out. Your future is right now. But when it comes to these teams like North Carolina, like North Dakota State, you want to get injured at North Dakota State, you're not getting drafted if you're from North Dakota State and you don't play the game, right?
Well, hang on. North Dakota State is a powerhouse. They're Division
Division
or whatever
it's
called nowadays. But they're still FBS, a powerhouse that's going to
FCS,
national championship games.
Yeah. No, and obviously Trey Lance did enough with it and opted out, but no, I
Yeah,
think that
made
yeah.
millions.
So it works out sometimes, but I mean,
Yeah.
like I say, if you're playing for one of these lesser teams, you don't want to necessarily get injured. Here's where I think that it was pretty interesting in the draft is I was eyeing this pretty closely. They didn't trade up in the first round for a QB. You're starting to enter this territory where you expect some QBs to be taken. And so I was
Hmm.
wondering, are they going to take QB with the third round? Because especially Davis Mills was a name that was thrown around as being taken in the second. No QBs taken in the second. You get to the third round, and it gets all the way to the last pick before Kyle Trask was taken
Yeah.
by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the last round of the third pick. That to me was just like, okay, now it's game on. Round four is going to be interesting. Are you going to see a trade up? Are they going to be taking, a QB here with their fourth round pick? And then immediately within the first three picks, the two best names got taken out, right? So Kellen Mond was gone with the second pick in the fourth round, and Davis Mills right after that with the third pick to Houston. Which this is where when I was talking about a good player going to a team that has a good fit, Davis Mills is going to get just absolutely decimated. This is going to be like David Carr level territories of bad. He's just going to get beat up because Deshaun Watson probably isn't playing this season. Unlikely, who knows what's going on with that situation. Davis Mills is going to be thrust into a starting role, and it's just going to be a bloodbath. It's going to be a massacre. We talked
Yeah.
about Kellen Mond and Davis Mills. I know you weren't too high on any of the mid round QBs, so you're probably
Yeah.
okay with not going after them. I'm also okay that they didn't have to trade up. They didn't trade up draft picks to take one. I was a little surprised to see those two taken, especially Kellen Mond for Minnesota. When they're paying Kirk Cousins something like $30 million a year to go 8-8 as RG3 called him out on
Oh,
national television.
what is RG3 doing, man? He was just killing Cousins. I mean, all of a sudden he's out of a job and he's in doing some analysis, and he's just like, I'm going to take
Throwing him
some
under the bus.
pent up anger from 8 years ago, and I'm just going to pummel Kirk Cousins.
I've watched those clips over and over again because it
Yeah.
just makes me laugh that we talked about we don't have the QB drama this year as some other teams do, but man, that was it. That was our QB drama there. But so, are you surprised that they didn't go with a QB here in the third or fourth round?
Mm-mm, absolutely not. Because really, we've talked about quarterbacks ad nauseum over the time that we've been doing this show. And I don't think that a Trask, Mills, any of those are any better than the young guys that you have on the roster, Heineke and Allen. To say not very good. I think pick on somebody who is probably not going to be any good. I don't have any faith any of those guys are going to be good. The history own these guys are not going to be any. Sure, one of them might surprise us in there, but most likely they're not from that. But I will say, into next off, what happens? I'm going to say the same that it's irresponsible that Washington doesn't find their quarterback of the future at some point in the offseason or in the draft. They got to do because Fitzpatrick isn't your quarterback of the future.
They absolutely do. So
Neither is anybody else.
So Stoner is on location again this week, so you might see that he's
Oh,
kind of gone fuzzy on us, and his box is no longer fitting our screen here. Again, we
no.
do stream live every Sunday at 10 a.m. We are running a little bit long today. It's 11:09 right now. So we're going to go through these last picks. John Bates in the fourth round, tight end out of Boise State. They needed a tight end. This guy wasn't an athletic freak, but he seems like he might be someone who might be an inline blocker. Jeremy Sprinkle was the comp that people gave him, which does not exactly make Washington fans excited. You have Derek Forrest, safety out of Cincinnati. That's somebody who hopefully can play some free safety. They gave around a fifth round pick for next year to get an extra sixth and seventh this year, and then take Cameron Cheeseman,
Yeah.
long snapper.
Uh, Yep. They needed a long snapper, right?
Out of your Wolverines, hopefully, you
Oh,
know.
don't say my Wolverines. I hope he doesn't make the roster. Let's be honest here.
You they
I'm
needed a
not
long
rooting for
snapper
him
after
at
getting rid of
all.
Sundberg. Hopefully he does make the roster because they do need somebody to do that. Hopefully they just need the person in the right position. Then you take a couple of edge type guys here and Will Bradley King and Shaka Tony. Shaka Tony, one great name, fun to say, is somebody who even Micah Parsons is like, how is this guy still on the board? He's a little bit lighter, right? He's not as far as a defensive end goes, an edge rusher. He's probably going to be somebody who's a specialist, especially taken in the seventh round. You know that, but he gets after the quarterback. He's got some speed. When you're talking an athletic freak type level, this guy can move, but he's probably an outside linebacker and a 3-4. But he's going to be a situational edge rusher, I think, here in Washington as they try to replace Kerrigan.
Yeah, I didn't even look at any of these guys after they're drafted. I'm not a once you get fourth round is my line. Anybody after the fourth round, if they make the team, whoa, that's amazing that they made the team. But they're not anybody special. They're just a bunch of jags. So I don't even bother looking at them. Is my box fixed, by the way?
Your
Is it
box
back
is
to normal?
fixed, yeah, and your back,
Okay, so it just went
it's
away for a minute.
fixed-ish. We can
Fixed
we
ish.
can tailor that another time here. Again, we understand you're on location. You're gonna,
Yep.
you're enjoying your family time, so we'll let you have that. That's the Washington draft. We went mostly pick by pick here. We talked a little bit about each one. We talked about our kind of general overfeel about it, but we didn't give it a grade. Would you like to give this draft a grade?
I'm going to give you yes, I would. Thank you for asking. Uh, I'm going to give you a few other people who have given grades real quickly here.
Okay.
Pro Football Focus A minus. CBS Sports Pete Prisco, who is a noted Washington football team hater, gave it a B plus. NFL.com B plus. Pro Football Network B. NBC Sports A minus and slash Mel Kiper gave it a B. And I think that's kind of where I'm at. Is probably a B. We of course we don't know. This is just our look to what we think is going to happen. But I find one starter that they drafted, and that's Jamin Davis, and the rest of the guys are competing for spots. I'm big on that. Your first rounds should all be guys to plug and play, but that could also mean that maybe the team is built well enough that they don't necessarily have need. They have to draft and put in that particular spot, so they don't necessarily have to have tackle because they get guys who can do the job. They have to have a starting corner. They don't necessarily have to have a starting wide receiver. So that could be a good thing as well. I'd give it a B. How about
I think a B is a solid grade. I think that's exactly where I'm going to go here. I do want to disagree with you though on like your first 3 round guys don't have to be plug and play to me. I mean, I think the first round does, right? If you're going to be taking somebody in the first round, that should be a day one starter. You're frozen on us, so we might have to wrap this up fairly quickly here. But as far as the rest, I'm okay with picking guys who are competing. I don't think Washington's in the place of luxury where they can afford to not have guys who, like these are ones I think Sam Cosmi comes in. I think he competes. I think that he does end up winning the job. Or if he doesn't, then maybe likely taking right tackle at some point. Brown is somebody who I think will be featured quite heavily. I'm still on the fence about St. Just, but we'll see where he fits in. It'll be interesting. I think overall, though, a B is a solid grade for Washington to have here as your internet starts to fix itself and you come back to us. Thankfully, your audio doesn't necessarily cut out too bad. Like it's like a broken phone call. But we at least heard and understood what you were trying to say with the you want starters from day one. I want people to contribute. That's the thing when I'm looking at a draft, especially in the later rounds. You're just looking for guys who are going to compete. But in those first 3 to 4 rounds, you're looking for guys who are going to compete. Maybe not in the first round. You have to have a starter, day one starter. That's if you're not going to get day one starter, then you better be trading back. With the rest of it, you're looking for ones who are going to push your starters, maybe replace some starters later down the road as you have some turnover, and that's where it is. And again, Washington's definitely not in a spot where they can afford to just pick up a bunch of jacks. They need people to be competing for these starting positions, or at least contributing. Like I said, Brown, I think, is going to contribute. I think we're going to see, maybe he's not going to have the most amazing season, but if he can repeat a 39 catch 300 season, apparently that's good enough for Washington fans to think that he needs to stay along, and then he showed promise. Thinking about Harmon there. So that was the game. Well, let's get to the post game before Stoner's internet completely decides to stop working on us here. There was a lot of QB offseason drama, and it did not include Washington this offseason. You had Watson, who obviously was in a bad. I'm not going to say that he was in a bad situation. He put himself in a bad situation, and we've talked about that before, so I'm not going to go in depth there. But this is somebody who people were talking about trading away entire drafts, to get him, to now all of a sudden he might not be playing another NFL down. You have Wilson, who was disgruntled with Seattle and then had 4 potential trade places, didn't end up getting traded after all. And now you have Rodgers right before it. This is the big bomb that got dropped before the NFL draft, hours before the NFL draft, was that Rodgers doesn't want to go back to Green Bay.
Right.
You've had a lot of back and forth there. Washington fans started dreaming of Rodgers in burgundy and gold, which was dream big, folks, but not going to happen.
He's another one of those guys that, excuse me, I would trade my entire draft for Aaron Rodgers. Or I would trade just about anybody on the roster for Aaron Rodgers, even though he is like 37, whatever his age is. He's got a lot of football left in him. But he said he's not going to go back to Green Bay. And so what do in response to that? And their first-round pick, they draft a corner, right? They don't even bother saying, okay, we hear you. You're frustrated. Let's go ahead and get you that receiver that everybody in the world knows you want and this team needs, right? Every mock draft that you looked at, they're drafting a receiver.
Our very own Jared Archquette won it. It was just like he was actually going to go with the cornerback at first, and it was just like, no, we have Aaron Rodgers. We need to give him some weapons,
right?
And ended up going wide receiver. It was fun to tease him come draft day. He's done with the team. Then when they finally Green Bay finally picks a receiver, they traded up to take a receiver that people are like, what? What do you do? Like, what is this? Now, granted, Green Bay has a track record of hitting on these receivers that you just don't know. But then again, is it that they're hitting on these receivers, or is it the fact that Rodgers is just otherworldly and is going to make any receiver work? Steve Sim Jr., when he gets cut, might head to Green Bay to try to revive his career, and he might look great, because there was at times that his rookie season, we thought that he was going to be, this amazing slot receiver for the team. You just don't know. Again, there's times and situations, but it's just interesting the situation that Green Bay has put itself into by not surrounding what could be. I would say Rodgers, some people would have him higher, very high on the list. I'd at least give him top 10 quarterbacks of all time.
Yeah. And I saw a report from, I believe it was Rappaport, right, who is an extremely well-respected NFL insider, right? And his report was something to the effect of that the Jeopardy brass was overwhelmed by the talent and the charisma that Aaron Rodgers showed, and that they might be all in for him to be the permanent host. That is the most ridiculous thing that Ian Rappaport has ever said. There is zero chance. I don't know if you happen to catch any of the Aaron Rodgers Jeopardy shows. He was not very good on there. He's very wooden. He doesn't have much of a personality. Just watch any of his interviews. He's not a personality kind of guy. So I don't know if somebody put him up to that report or what, but that was just the biggest clickbait I've seen in a long time. But I feel bad for Rodgers, though. He should have they should have said, we hear you. Let's get you a first-round receiver right now. Here you go. And they didn't do that.
It'll be interesting to watch that situation unfold if Rodgers does just kind of sit out a season. I think that's all he has left on his contract is 1 year. Mm-hmm. So he could potentially just sit out and then go to another team. I'm not sure how that works with the contracts and the NFLPA, the Players Association, whether or not that counts as a year or whether or not if he tries to come back after that. Essentially what you got is just this is a Brett Favre situation, only not because Brett Favre's situation was Brett Favre waffling on I'm going to retire, I'm not going to retire, I'm going to retire, I'm not going to retire. And eventually Green Bay had to cut the cord. Here you have Rodgers, who wants to play, and very well, when you're looking at Tom Brady, very well could play for another 3 to 5 years at a level that, because his arm strength is still there. Rodgers can still put zip on the ball, throw a Hail Mary probably better than anybody. And so you're looking at 3 to 5 years with him. That's why, I would not have been surprised if they go for a run, if a team goes for a run here for Rodgers with some picks. The problem is you just gave up the known quantities here with this draft, so now it's going to be next year's draft, and teams aren't going to be so certain where he's going to go for that. But it'll be interesting. That's Green Bay's problem, not Washington's problem. Right. So we can be thankful for that Washington's only QB problem is that it has Fitzpatrick, Kyle Allen, and Taylor Heineke.
And don't forget our guy Steven Montez.
Oh yeah, so many people that we can convert to tight end apparently on Washington. As we'll see how it goes for them when the season comes up. But that's been it for us here on Ref the District. Again, we stream live every Sunday at 10 a.m. So you can catch us live. Come join us and talk to us here on the live chat. Jazzy loves your stories, Stoner. And we'd love to have you. If not, you can catch the recast later on in the day. We'll be getting those up where the time chunks. And then Stoner works diligently to make sure that we have some clips going out there. Who knows what we'll be talking about next week. We'll let you know when that time comes. I'm Nathan Perry. He's the Stoner. And this is Ref the District.